Want to go live. All right, we're live. Hi, this is Peter Brusso for 101 Small Business Mastermind. And with us today, I've got Richard Bentley. Say hi, Dick.
Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody.
And we've got Mark Giardino. Say hi, Mark. Maybe we have Mark. We had him. Frank. Say hi, Frank.
I am here. Yes.
Okay, so, and then Mark, say hi. You're back with us.
Yes. Hello, Mark Giardino, sportsrefer.com.
Okay, and so Dick wanted to jump out with a quote here. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, Peter. One of the things that we've talked about we're going to start doing is having a series of segments of our podcast be devoted to how to develop an internet strategy, and I've been reading a book by Robert Kiyosaki called The Business of the 21st Century. He's a noted author and successful business person and all. And in this paragraph, I'll read, it says, money does not go to the business which has the best product. Money flows to the business with the best leaders. A business that has forgotten how to tell its own story is soon out of business, even if it has tons of inventory. When I find a business that is struggling financially, it is often because the leader of that business cannot communicate the company's vision. He or she cannot tell the story. They may be smart, but they're poor communicators. And I felt this was appropriate to the subject matter of how to build an internet strategy, because really what you're trying to help people do with your web services is tell their story on the internet through social media and any other vehicle that makes sense. So I thought that was a kind of appropriate to maybe kick off this series. Is that you're really helping people tell the story of their business. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, Dick. Yeah, so in the four-part series, and everybody's heard me talk a bit about competitive analysis, but that's really sort of where we start, is to take a look at your internet space. Now, there's two types of businesses. One type of business is one that doesn't care if they're on the internet or not, like a hot dog stand possibly, or something that's mobile that moves around like that, although they still should have some internet presence for people to be able to hire them to bring their mobile stand over. But then there's everybody else that has both brick and mortar, and then the third type is just purely internet. But nonetheless, every business has its own internet space and competitors. And people say, well, I don't have any competitors because nobody does what I do. Well, that's not true either. I mean, take, for example, my self-defense weapon. Nobody creates a weapon like that, but I am competing in the space for self-defense weapons. So even though no one has anything like what I do, nonetheless, I still have competition. So it's important to find those 10 or 20 competitors and then basically go take and look at what they're doing. And you get a spreadsheet out in front of you. You can do it on a piece of paper if you want to, but first you look at their websites and you see if they're modern. Do they have any keywords? Next thing you go look at, and you can find those by usually right-clicking your browser and view the source, and you can search for keywords and see what they are. And then later there are keyword tools, and we'll talk about that. But and then you walk down the next level. Do they have social media? And the next question is, are they active with their social media? What social medias are they using, and are they active, or are they just kind of sort of dormant or just placing themselves there? So you go down through a list of things like that. Podcasts, for example. Do they have podcasts? Do they have video on their site? If they do, is the video good value video? And you get a good look to see what your competition is all about. Another part of the analysis is how easy it is to use their website. That's a user function, and in the bigger picture of life, to get people to your site, that's the first challenge with any internet business, anyone. The second one is keeping them on your site, or usability. Offering value, obviously, call to actions, all those on-page SEO type and business type techniques. So the first step in all of that is to take a really good look at your competition. see what they're all about, see how stiff they are. And I also usually rate my competition 1 through 3, 1 being a significant player, 3 being somebody I don't really even care about. They're not really pushing themselves out there. So, from my standpoint, that's the first thing you do. In parallel to keywords and in parallel to developing your philosophy on the web. So does that make sense, Dick?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a starting point that everyone needs to go by, and I know you're I think unique in the sense that you're an engineer, you have strong technical background, and you know how to you know the ins and outs of setting up a website and the SEOs and the keywords and all the other things that go on it, but you also have a very sharp and marketing mind, and I think as we get into our series, maybe we talk, we talk about that, because I think that's where you can help a business owner develop that ability to develop their strategies and tell their story. So when I go to someone's website, and Frank has often said, you've got X amount of seconds to grab them. So that website has got to have that grabber that's going to make Frank or me or anyone else want to continue on looking at the website. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the downstream, when we get to that part of it, I certainly have a Excel spreadsheet, and I think Frank and you have both been through my, how to build a website, Excel spreadsheet stuff, and all the stuff that entails. But yeah, we can certainly go cover that as well, because I think that comes down to that next piece. When you do get traffic, how easy is your website, and are you truly asking them to make a decision? And Frank is absolutely right. He always says you only have one opportunity to make a good first impression, and that's true. So.
No, I think that's very true, and your Excel spreadsheet is a tremendous tool, and I was involved in managing and running a fairly sizable electronics distribution business, and I sure wish I had something like that when I was doing it, because it lays a good roadmap for you. So I think you're right on target.
Hey, Dick?
Yes.
I think what we're trying to say here is most people think when they want to do a website that they're thinking of what the colors of the website, the layout, and kind of just the whole photography of the site. What we're saying here is you got to prepare your website with the content that will compete with your competition. So what's that mean? What Peter's saying, you have to do your research. You have to look to see your competition's websites. You have to see what their wording is, what type of websites. So before you even do anything, you have to prepare your content for your website. And I just kind of want to say that's what we're saying here. Before even you do your website, you have to prepare your content.
Yeah, and I think that not only preparing one's content, and it should be a marketing type content, not an online brochure. That's the biggest mistake I think most people do, is that they build an online brochure versus benefit driven versus information driven. And I think that is where the marketing aspect comes in. Frank, you want to say something there? I can see you getting ready to crank up there.
I always have something to say. By the way, I think this is probably one of the most important topics that we'll be discussing in these podcasts. Is we'll talk about the online presence, because whether you accept it or not, the people you're trying to sell most likely are going online to check you out before you even know they exist, and that's the premise of the thing that I'm doing with the book. And Mark brought up a good point. You can have the prettiest website with the nicest pictures and the prettiest colors, and you can even have flashing lights and whatever you want, and it'll keep them for maybe 2.8 seconds, but then they're going to go to content. And if your content doesn't grab them in 2.8 to 8 seconds, which, by the way, is, as I mentioned last week, is the attention span of a goldfish. If it doesn't grab them, you get the red X. Now, that's on the PC. I don't know what it is on the Mac. We go up to the upper right-hand corner and go, and you are now gone. And if I remember who you are, you're gone forever because you've already bored me once, and I have too many other choices. So content is king. Attention-grabbing content that delivers value is God, if I can put the two in perspective.
Yeah, let me comment on that. I like to build websites. If they were the goldfish, I've got a cat trying to eat you, and that attention span is not 2 seconds.
All right, we got it. So no, I think it has never been easier to do what we're talking about here. It has never been cheaper to do what we're talking about here, and it has never been more important to do what we're talking about here. In these next 4 podcasts.
You know, and on that same note, you know, one of the things that I think that upsets me the most is you see all these places that have either templates or they claim they build custom stuff for you, and what they do is customize templates. But you know, a boutique builder like myself, one of the unique things that we have is we're so customer centric that we are constantly thinking and networking our customers. And I know I've got to build a site that makes them money. That's the whole point, not take their money. You know, and so I think it's so important that what we're talking about here in the next 4 episodes anyway is the ability to build a really nice, user-friendly, clean, market-driven, benefits-driven website that gives you a fighting chance. Now, if your product is inferior to everybody else, the best website in the world isn't going to help you. You know, so you got to make sure that's going for you too. So, all right, I think that sort of. Does anybody have anything else with that? Otherwise, Frank had some things he wanted to rebut from the Jane, you ignorant, yes, from last.
No. But before we get to that, I want to go back and talk about because I like the comment Dick Kiyosaki about your story, and this is important. In fact, I have a boring life, so I read nonfiction books. And there was a quote I read this week, and it's, "You can be the best in the world, and it won't matter. You can tell the best story in the world, and it won't matter unless somebody is listening."
Well, that's true.
And that's where you come in, Peter. You get it. You can't do the best story in the world without the best and the best visible. We talked about being visible last week, about the best visible. You've got to do both. You got to have, like Mark said, a great content, but you've got to be someplace where people will easily find you. And so you can't, you can spend all your time on stories, which is awesome, but I hope you're enjoying it because you'll be talking to yourself. You've got to be visible when the people who are looking want to see what you have to say. And so I want to make sure we get that point across as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And next week, by the way, we may have a guest who's a brand new realtor and wants to pick our brains about what should he do to start driving traffic to him. And so if we're lucky enough to get him, that'll be interesting. So just to give you guys a heads up, and that's a bit of a challenge for sure. Yeah. You know, realtors, that's a very competitive space. And so, we got Mark Paul just joined us. That's good. First timer.
Yeah. And I wanted to comment on Frank. Again, great comment, Frank. So you have your story, but how do you be found? How are you found on Google? So you have to do your keyword research. So on your keyword research, that's like you said, Peter, with his spreadsheets and all that, you find where you can find a niche on your Google. So you apply those keywords to your story and hope for the best. So it's keyword content driven, and that's very important.
That'll be I think the next episode too, Mark. So don't go down that line too far. But Mark is right. Once you have a handful of keywords, which is the biggest challenge, then you utilize those all across all of your web properties, whether it's on your page, on your site, on your off-site blog, whether you're doing articles or social media, you've got to use those keywords across the entire web. And it's a slow burn. It's a long distance runner. It's 3 to 6 months before you're going to start to see it. Now, we've seen odd things, both Mark and I, that hit just like right away. Like, wow, how do we do that? If we tried to do it, we would never do it. But yeah, so those are good ones too. Now, Dick, you wanted to jump in on the. Let me actually tell a scam story real quick here. Something everybody should be aware of, and then Dick, or do you want to do the IRTC thing first, Dick?
Maybe we should introduce Mark Paul. I think he just jumped on. Let us say a couple of words.
Yes, Mark Paul, the consummate sales professional extraordinaire.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right. You want me to do an intro?
Sure, real quick.
What I do? Yeah. I've been in the marketing advertising business for about 30 years. Sell everything to print, to internet, to digital products. And my reason for being part of this is making sure that we can help anybody looking for help and needing help, and just being a sounding board. And the other half is me trying to learn as much as I can learn about it and see how many people we can help day to day in our businesses.
Okay, good. Well, your audio's a little on the low side, but we'll work on that. Also the thing with Mark Paul is, I'll tell you a story. I meant he works user-friendly media stuff as well, and I met him, and there have been very few marketing people that can track with what I'm talking about. And boy, I'd start the sentence and he'd end it, and he'd start a sentence and I'd end it. That's how we ended up really learning to enjoy each other's company, and our histories are pretty broad, so we can offer a lot to people. That's pretty good. So, Dick, do you want me to go ahead and share the IRTC document first?
Yeah, why don't you do that? And that segment, and we're going to go over a few facts and figures, and then maybe story he does. I never heard before. So yeah, why don't you want to bring that up?
I think it is. Is it up?
Yes, it is now. Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody see it?
Go ahead and speak, Peter.
So
It'll come up. There you go.
I think it's up now.
Okay.
There you go.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Identity Theft Resource Center that Dick sent me, this PDF, if everybody can see that, all right. And basically it says here that there were 8,715,474 exposed records as of the 3rd of June. And that's 330 breaches, and some of these, well, they can't tell how many they were, but here's a hospital with 594 breaches, which, by the way, speaks to web security. If you're going to build your website, you're going to start to take payments and things like that. This is something you need to consider. What is your security? Here's Monsanto with 1,300 records. Down here was Home Depot. Here's the American Institute for Research at 6,500. Precision Planting, they got hit, but I don't know what. Let me go down here. There was a Home Depot. Here's a law firm, 5,500 records. American Dental Association at 26. And here's another hospital. You see, here's the VA Denver, 239. Yeah. Humana, almost 3,000. I mean, it's just eBay at 0, but they apparently got hit. So yeah, you can see here here's a healthcare, city of Cincinnati at almost 6,000. These aren't small groups of people, but my point, or Dick and I both been talking about, there's going to be a time when they're going to spend a reasonable sum of money, because they have IT guys all over the place, and these loopholes are going to get closed up, and then guess who who they're going to be looking at, and that's us. So it's small business and people with websites. But Seattle University at 628 people. Yeah, records. So anyway, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, Peter, on that eBay thing, that it has since come out that it was millions of breaches as far as getting passwords and all. So that report it doesn't show. I forget how many millions, but it was a huge amount of records were taken.
Here's Lowe's. Look at
Yeah,
this, 3,500 at
Yep.
Lowe's.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Now, to Peter's comment about small business, I did a blog post, my last one, and I talked about small retail, especially vulnerable. And just to take a small portion of it, just to give you, it says the results of a survey taken by Ponemon Institute in 2013 showed that more than 50% of all small businesses surveyed have experienced a data breach to that point. It's also pointed out that only a third of the consumers had been notified that their personal information had been breached. The trend in 2014 is showing similar hacking activity. Again, to Peter's point, over 50 have been breached in 2013. And at that, it shows that the small businesses aren't really equipped to handle that kind of. They don't know if only a third of their customers were notified that it's very dangerous to the consumer, and it goes on, about how they do it and what you should do and all that. Point out this is if I won't say the next battlefront because based on those numbers, it's already in the battle, but the small businesses are so far less or any eBay, eBay and all these things, because one, they may not even know they've been hacked, and once they find out they've been hacked, they're not sure what to do and who to go to, and all, and and maybe in one of our podcasts, I could give some information, and we all could on what after they found out they've been hacked, because you owe it to your customers to secure that information. So, that's kind of all I have to say in that area. So.
All right. There's another story. Let me go along with that. Back on the scam side of life, we have a restaurant friend who was telling me a scam story, and basically they were going to shut off his gas to his restaurant on a Friday afternoon late, unless he paid $1,100 or $1,200 cash. And they told him to go across the street to CVS Pharmacy and buy one of those payment cards, come back, call them up and give them the number, and they would take the payment that way. Wow. Okay, and he did it. And then they called him back and said, well, due to some kind of technical error, you're going to have to do it again, and we'll credit you back that money, but go get another one, take the money, and he did it again. And he's calling his accountant all the time, why are we in this situation? And he did it a third time. So they got almost $4,000 cash from this guy in a couple of hours in an afternoon. And he finally called the gas company to complain about this problem. They knew nothing of it. And the question came, well, how did this person know that he might have been behind in his payment? And apparently there's a mole inside the gas company that passes this stuff on to people from Nigeria, as it turns out. And so he reported them to the police with nothing. He reported them to the gas company, nothing. And so these scams are just this is a guy that we all know. All of us have eaten at his restaurant. and for him to get taken like that, that's just crazy. And so it just goes to show that, you know, with websites,
absolutely.
with your web presence, with all this stuff, you've got to think about the security of what's going on in your business as well. That used to not have to be that way, but boy, it's getting even more so.
So let's say what we want to go over what you're saying, Peter, is when you're building your website, you have to think of your internal security plan.
Correct. I mean, like I take money and I do it via PayPal. I absolutely love PayPal. PayPal keeps both the buyer and the seller in concert with each other and protects both sides of us. I've had people try to scam me after I send them an item. Well, they never got it. And my job is to do a tracking number, and when it gets to their post office box or their house, my job is done. If somebody steals it out of their post office box, that's not my problem. And, you know, they try to get a second or third item by saying these things. And, you know, they are the 1%ers. And so everybody gets all wigged out about the 1%ers. I don't worry about those that much. But you do have to think about your security of your website, for sure.
And also your internal administration of your website, your emails, your content, anything in your admin could get hacked.
Oh, absolutely.
And then once that goes, then we have a lot of issues. You can be black flagged, and numerous things can go from there.
Yeah, strangely enough, was it 14 days before Christmas, my main site got hacked from the host side, not my side. And I had to go repair the whole thing, change passwords, you know, so they look for those opportunities for small business, and they think, well, you might not have the resources to fix it. Go ahead, Dick, you were going to say something? Dick?
Yeah. I heard about last
Whoops.
night, I never heard before, and it'd be good. He was talking about she wanted to get cable because her husband is a big soccer fan and wants to be able to watch the World Cup. And before that, you know, they never had cable to do it. So she went online, got an 800 number for Time Warner, had done a due diligence about pricing and all, got a hold of somebody, talked about it, set up an appointment for them to come to her house and hook up the cable at, you know, 2 o'clock, between 2 and 4 type of thing, like they do. And they asked for the credit card number, and she said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give it to the person that comes here, you know," and not even thinking about it. Well, the day came and went. The Time Warner never showed up. 2 or 3 days later, they still hadn't called or showed up. So she called the 800 number that she had for Time Warner off her bill. As it turns out, that the website she visited was a phony website set up outside the country. It wasn't Time Warner's, and they've been doing and they've been scamming people left and right, getting their credit card numbers and things. And she was fortunate enough that she didn't give her credit card number, so there was no damage done. But, you know, again, you know, like the Time Warner people told her, especially if you're an existing customer, we will never ask for a credit card. You. If you're a new customer, we'll not ask for a credit card. We will. Again, it's just a kind of a anecdote of what's going on in this world, just from all areas. And then I have one last thing. Go quick up, Peter, because you've talked about this before. I had never heard of it. In the local paper, there was a headline that says Russian hackers and crime spree, and they mentioned the dark web, what you have talked about. I don't know if we've talked, but this guy, series of heists and all, and $100 million out of the United States banks through the dark web and hacking into their.
Wow.
I just, you know, I mean about it. I don't know if you talked about the dark web on the podcast. I thought it might be interesting.
No, I haven't. The dark web or the dark net is actually 90% larger than the known the internet that we currently have. 90% larger. Wow. Just think that number out. That's crazy. But at any rate. All right. So scams, beware, and certainly do make sure your website is as secure as you can make it. Frank, you want to jump in? You had a couple 3 points from last week.
Yeah. I did my thing last week and got some great feedback, and I appreciate all of it. There were just a couple of things that as we were going through, I remember thinking to myself, why the hell did I say that? Because, Dick brought up a point, and I said, man, I must have, that makes no sense. What the hell did I just say? So I went back and I listened. I watched the cast again. As a matter of fact, I said, I got to stop saying these are really dumb things. And I couldn't figure out why I said it. And come to find out, I didn't say that. So again, and Dick and I are friends, so please don't take this the wrong way. Dick, you're entitled to your own opinion.
Here we go.
Dick, here we go. But Dick, to quote I have no idea who a politician was, you're not entitled to your own set of facts. So let me set the record straight on 3 points. Number one was on follow-up. And I like Dick's opening line. He says, much to Frank's chagrin, I followed up with a guy and whatever it was. And I'm saying, follow up, that makes sense. And I said, wow, I must have said don't follow up. So I went back and I listened to it, and I have my notes here in front of me, as a matter of fact, so I'll be looking to the left. What I said was, a sign of being needy is how this whole topic came up. If you continue to call them back and they do not take your call or return your call, okay? Follow-up is part of every business. I mean, everything. I've very seldom worked in a one close sale call and a one call close. And you always have to follow up as long as the follow-up logical makes sense and it's working for the prospect. It's when a guy says, you know what, I'm not interested, and you follow up again, and you follow up again, and you follow up again, and the guy says, leave me alone, that's a sign of neediness. So follow-up is good. Follow up when the guy doesn't, the guy or gal doesn't want you to follow up, I think is a sign of being neediness. That. Number two was referrals. And about getting referrals. We all like, again, I don't like the word referral. I like the word introduction. And I've been in the same training that Mark Jalome has been with an insurance company, and they drilled in our heads that the minute you sat with someone, assuming that they liked you, and we're likable guys, so people like us, even if they don't buy from you that meeting, you ask them for a bunch of referrals. And you ask them for as many specific ones, and you get maybe 1 or 2 at best. But then you ask them, and I use the term cajole them into saying, who do you know just got married? Who do you know just had a baby? Who do you know just bought a house? That kind of thing. And we would get those, and then we would call them and say, oh, your brother-in-law, Mark Giardino, gave me a number. I understand you just bought a house. I think that is a sign of weakness. So asking for introductions makes sense, but cajoling people into giving you blank referrals, I think, is a sign of neediness. So those are the 2 I wanted to make. And then number 3, which I think is the most controversial. And again, about customer is king. And his comment was, well, he's a customer-centric person, and we're all customer-centric. I think the moment you have a customer, the customer is a king. When you sign into an agreement, whether it be verbal or a contract, whatever, you have an obligation, duty, and even the law to deliver what you promised, and hopefully a little bit more. The customer must be king. The point where I think there's a disagreement on, and I welcome the disagreement on this, is the prospect. Before the person becomes a prospect, becomes a customer, they are a prospect, and the prospect is not the king. If you believe the prospect is the king, then you need them more than they need you. And when you need them more than they need you, you are needy, and it comes across, and we talked about how neediness kills sales. You've got to go in when you're prospecting with the attitude that I have spent a lot of time and money learning what I know. I believe I have something that will dramatically help your situation, and let's talk about it. And if they think you need them more than they need you, you will lose stature. When you lose stature, you lose sales. Those are the 3 points I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, Dick, you want Jane, you ignorant rebuttal?
No, I will best to be an A person.
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. So let me.
I don't want to. I just want to keep going back and forth with these things because we have very distinct opinions, and Frank, you were a lot more detailed in your opinions today than you were last week. If you say you went back and looked at it, but I disagree, and that doesn't mean you're wrong or I'm wrong or I'm right either. I just disagree, and it's like arguing with my wife. There comes a point where I realize it's time to stop the argument. So I will own up.
Dick, I will never sleep with you. I guarantee it. That's number one. By the way, let me share.
Thank you.
Let me add a little bit more liberty. Let me add a little bit personal side here. Let me tell you about neediness. And I'm a professional needy person. I was brought up being needy. And let me share a little personal story. I was a virgin until the age of 20 by popular demand because I was very, very needy. I was looking for anyone at any time, please, because I didn't want to be where I was until I was 20. And so it works in your personal life and it works in your professional life. If you don't value what you do as highly as you should, then that was just a point I wanted to make. But you're right, I don't want to go back and forth. And Dick, and I love the fact that you and I have two completely different opinions on all this. And I hope we share them freely, and as we have done, and let people choose, and definitely let people choose. There's more than one way to get from point A dash point B. I have one way, you have the other way, and I think that is healthy. Thank you.
All right. With that all being said, I actually enjoy the contrast. You can learn a lot from both sides, and I think it's a style issue to some degree. And so, but let me bring out another thing, kind of rolling back to websites. Mark Paul did something very, very unique that I want to talk about. I poo-pooed the Yellow Pages, and he sells Yellow Page ads amongst other things he does. They're not Yellow Page, but user-friendly media. But at any rate, he actually sat down with me. We went through this process that only he uses, apparently. And I was representing the computer repair company that I've helped. And the first thing he asked me is, what package deal do you give, or what thing do you make the most money on? I thought about that. Well, it's our total care package at $250 at the time. And, for a whole year, we'll take care of your computer and this and that. And he goes, fine, let's start there. And so the way he structured his conversation was, of course, benefits driven, right? And then when we looked in the Yellow Pages or the ads for our competitors, none of them had the process that Mark went down. So Mark, talk a few seconds about benefits and ad copy, whether it's on a website or on an ad.
Well, I think that it's really important to sell the benefits as opposed to the features, because frankly, features are facts, and stories are the things that are going to sell. So you really need to tell people why it benefits them to do whatever it is. And the two questions that I ended up asking Peter at the beginning was, what do you like to do, and where's the profit in the business? Most everybody can tell you where the profit is, but other people say, why do you want to know what I like to do? I like to do the things that make money. I said, no, what's the fun part for you? Because what I want you to do is I want you to have fun in your business, and I want you to make money. Some people will take things, for instance, in the mortgage business. I was in that for a few years. And in the mortgage business, you have the things that you like because they're easy, doing little FHA loans, little VA loans, that kind of stuff. You make your money in the jumbo loans, or you make those kinds of things. When I talk to my contractors, they'll have something where they say, they like to do this big job, but there's times when you'll take a small job because it fits between two big jobs, and you want to keep your guys working, and you want to keep the income. Sometimes you'll do it because it's a family friend, or it's something that is very challenging to you. So we all have our reasons why we want to do something. But when you're putting the advertising together, you really want to try to make sure that whoever it is that you're aiming at, you want to make sure that you represent yourself the way that you want to be. Um, did that answer sort of what the question was, Peter?
Yeah, that's good counsel. I think the big thing that we went down through, though, was really structuring everything to be benefits driven, and also to set you apart from your competitors. Because we took a look at the other ads, and none of them had any of the stuff we were really talking about. Which how do you differentiate yourself against your competitors? Goes all the way back to our first lesson today. What are those competitors, and what are they doing? And you need to know that topography really before you set out to start writing stuff. But we had such a good thing. I thought that was pretty clever.
One of the things that I got a call from a group of guys in a nearby city that are all plumbers. And in this city, it's a smaller town, and they probably have 20 plumbers that are the main guys in the city. And it turns out that I had about 11 of them as my clients. Although the other people didn't know they were my clients, I had all of them. And they weekly would meet at Starbucks before they start their day, like on a Friday, and they just kind of chat with each other because it's a small town and they know each other. And after going there, they said, well, who does your ad? And they said, well, Mark does. And they go, Mark does mine too. Well, Mark does mine. Oh, my gosh. He knows all of our secrets. Quick, call the guy and tell him we don't want him to work on our stuff anymore because he'll tell our secrets to each other. And so one of the guys called me, and he said, we've decided we don't want to work with you anymore because you tell everybody what the thing is with each other. And I said, whoa, guys, I tell you what, next Friday, I'll buy the coffee and the donuts and everybody show up and let's chat about this. Let me chat with all of you, and then let's see if you want to cancel, then cancel. But I think you need to know a little bit about this. So next week I showed up, the rest of the guys showed up, and I asked a pretty simple question. I said, is there anybody here who is not making money from what I'm doing for you? And they said, no, we're all making money. I said, everybody knows that you all have a different kind of a piece, even though plumber is a plumber is a plumber. 85, 90% of everything they do is pretty much the same thing. They all clean toilets. They can put in a garbage disposal. They do water heaters. It really doesn't matter. They all can do the same thing. They can repipe, but each one of them has the thing that they want to do. I said, well, if you guys had to pick one guy out here, who would you pick as the guy who wants to do the new construction? Oh, well, that's John. And who's the guy who's the water heater king? Oh, well, that's Bill over there, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, what I've done with you guys is I've talked to each one of you individually, and I brought out the thing that you want to know and understand, and then put that into the ad. So are you actually getting the customers that you want? And then which one of you guys, if you say you have a leak, do you all have leak detecting equipment? Oh, no. Well, that's Sam. He's the only guy in town that really has that piece of equipment, and he helps us out by doing that, so we don't all have to go buy that. So that's really the point of being able to put that in there. The water heater guy, big thing at the top of the page that says water heater expert. Now, everybody else has water heater in their bullet points toward the bottom, but when you key it in for something specifically, but he's got a good big old picture of a water heater and big old smile on the face of the customer when he puts it in, that kind of stuff, and shows the benefits of if you want hot water right away, if you want to put in one of the things at the other end of your house that's not next to the big water heater, the instant hot water in the kitchen. There's all those little things, but that's what he decided to key in on so that they all can kind of refer to each other. And in fact, it's really kind of nice because there's a few of them. When one guy goes on vacation, he rolls the things over to a buddy of his, and they're able to take care of their clients. So that's really kind of a healthy kind of a thing. But the good part is when everything was said and done, everybody was happy. And the point is, are you all making money? Yeah. Are you all getting the kind of jobs that you want to get? Yeah. Is there any reason why we need to continue down that cancel road? And they said, no, this is good. We understand that. I'm not going to disclose and say, hey, you know that Bill's doing this. Don't you think you really want to put this in your ad? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I don't do that. I just ask the questions and make sure that they get things covered that they want to.
Well, I think the point being is the importance of driving benefits and understanding, actually exploring benefits that you actually give as a service provider in their case, and then other ones, of course. When you do your own website, you've got to understand that stuff. So ad copy is really, really, really important, I think, and understanding your benefits. So
now, again, so how do we apply that to the beginning of our website? We go to Mark, or we go to ourselves, we find what we do best. And what we do best, we apply that in our website.
yeah, and however, I will counsel backwards. What we believe we do best, because we're too close to the forest, we can't see the trees. It turns out that we're not doing those things. So that there's a trick in there, like a couple of meetings back, we had a CPA who was giving a talk at one of our groups, and when asked what his elevator pitch was, he couldn't really deliver an elevator pitch. And of course, Frank and I are chomping at the bit. There's 3 levels of elevator pitch. There's a 10-second, the 30-second, and the 1 minute. There's 3 flavors, and Frank and I would have said, well, which of the 3 would you like to hear? And they make sense. And of course, an elevator pitch being, elevator door closes, you have between one floor and another, or one floor and many, if asked to pose your business to somebody. And so he struggled, and I wrote down this thing. Let me see if I can find it even here. I wrote it down, and I said, here, just read this. Basically, it was I want to make sure you won't pay more money than you owe. That's good CPA. And number 2, and you will not go to jail. See, the difference between paying what you owe or paying too much is one thing. Not paying the correct amount means you go to jail. And so, the information that he was talking about was really quite different than what his real benefits were, is my point. Sometimes you need people on the outside. And then Frank came up with Frank, do you still have those other 4 points?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I added to your 2, and the 2 I added. And again, this is my thing. I think in terms of sound bites, because it's easy attention. And again, we're back to that goldfish thing. And
cat.
People.
And the cat.
Yeah, okay. That's right. People, and again, and the internet has caused this. People say, "Hey, boring, I'm out of here," or "Not what I want, I'm out of here." They don't give you a chance to say, "Well, let me tell you what I really meant." Okay, and so what I did with the CPA is I put it in terms of 2 different sound bites, and I used a metaphor, so something that people can relate to. He did something called forensic accounting. And I said, "What the hell's friend?" And I listened to what he was talking about, and it's going back and talking about going to see what your former accountant did, see if it made any sense. So I said, "Hey, if you have a problem with what somebody else did for you prior to this guy come on board, we're the CSI of forensic accounting." So I related CSI to that. And then he talked about audits. If you go to an audit, I go with you, and I have all the documentation. And I said, "How can I relate that?" And I says, "Oh, if you ever get audited, they'll act like Johnny Cochran." There to prove that you did everything right. And so people, I think, and a lot of people don't. In fact, I've been accused of being a soundbite guy by a gentleman that we all know and don't like. I've been accused of being a soundbite guy, but I think that's the way people are thinking. A lot of people are thinking, and I think you got to use sound bites, and you've also got to do some kind of analogy that people can relate to in your elevator pitch, and that's where I was going with that.
Yeah. I think we actually covered this last week too, but it was certainly worth noticing, because I think that Mark Paul runs into this quite often, don't you, Mark, about what they think they do, and that actually after you get to know the business, you find out that's not what they really do?
Yeah, or it's something that they have on their, when I do the analysis for the business, and I look to see what's on their website, I look to see what's in their office, what's outside on the signage, etc. And when it says, "Oh, we have 3 offices to serve you," and I said, "I could only find 2." It says, "Oh yeah, we closed that thing like 3 years ago. Was that still on our website?" Yeah, they come up with those little things, and just not to embarrass them, but it's kind of nice when somebody can come by and at least say, "I've done my due diligence, I've done my homework, and I am looking at all the ways that people might think this would be helpful or not helpful for them, and making sure that the information is correct." And then if they've changed the focus of their business, which many people have over the last 5 years. My business is certainly a lot different than it was in 2008 or 9. So the focus has moved from A to B to C to D, and if that's what they need to do, they just need to make sure that they update things and make sure that the things that are pertinent, people have new things that they've added. They've eliminated things that have gone by the wayside. I mean, not many people have a flip phone anymore, for certain reasons. And then when you say, "Can I text you?" they say, "Well, yeah, I guess." Or, "Can you look this up on the internet?" And they kind of look at me like a third eye and say, "I don't understand why you're asking this question, because I can't do that." And that's okay. You just need to understand where they are, where they're coming from, and then show them the way to get from point A to point B. And make it as, I mean, the marketing part of this is really only two things. The first thing is usage. Whatever they're kind of doing in their advertising or whatever, their customers going to find them. And the second thing is return on investment. This is something that we need to be careful of so that we can suggest things that people are going to use that make sense financially, and then show them how to play that game and make sure that it works for them.
Well, one thing too, I'll mention that it's about benefits. We keep hammering this back and forth about benefits, and Mark Giardino will back me up on this one. A website's never static. You're always adding to a website, and so as they change, if they've had something there for 3 years, Google hates that. Google's in the business of fresh, relevant content being king. If they're not changing or adding to their website either via a blog or actually updating their website on a monthly basis, they're really hurting themselves on the web. That's another big tip we'll talk about too. So welcome back there, Dick.
Thanks. Had some kind of a little hiccup there along the way.
Yeah, well, one of the things we've all got to learn to do is the horsepower of our computers may not be all that it should be for this. So you drop off all the applications that you don't need to have open to help our computers run better. But so at any rate, relevant content, I think, is the biggest thing that we're trying to drive at here from both marketing, website, elevator pitches. If you can't say it quickly and succinctly, there's a big issue. And I think, Frank, you're really big on trying to get people to do that, right?
Yeah, and again, I went to my Kindle. There's a book I read, and I'm trying to think what year it was published, and it's called "So What." Is the title of the book, written by Mark Magnacca, Magnacca, and his thing is again, especially in an elevator pitch, you only have so many seconds. I can tell you my benefits, which is extremely important, but then I've got to tell you what it means, what it could mean to you. Tell me. So, well, we have the fastest bada bings in the internet. So now you got to answer the question. So what? What does that mean to me? Oh, it means you can watch your daughter's video that much quicker. You don't have to wait for the wheel to turn around. We've always got to. I believe we always have to add a "so what" every time we talk about a benefit, and further emphasize what they already know, that what your benefit could do for them, or what they didn't know what your benefit could do for them, and it just makes you look that much better, and it makes it easier for people to understand. Always add the so what element when you talk about your benefits is what I'm going.
Dick, I'm going to put you on the hot spot here a second. Thank you very much. So, with Legal Shield, you've got a number of benefits. How do you approach the benefits effort when you're selling somebody or talking with them?
Well, if I'm just talking to an individual about the standard program, I just say you can have access to a top-flight, competent attorney, 365 days, 24 hours a day for less than $1 a day.
Yeah, that's great benefit, huh? So you just drive at them with that one singular benefit. Mark,
right, and if they get into more, then I can highlight. But to me, when someone says who has access to a lawyer 24 hours a day, every day of the year for less than $1 a day? Only Legal Shield members have that.
Yeah, I used to spend $10,000 a month on attorneys at one time, and it just in my mind, to get to an attorney is a $10,000 effort again, you know. So,
Yeah.
Mark Paul,
Yeah.
tell us what are the you always say this. What are the benefits of using you? I mean, what do you approach people with right off the bat?
The thing that I try to make sure that everybody understands is the fact that I want you to be represented the way that you want to. If you want to be known as, the plumber, that's fine. If you want to be known as the water heater guy in the plumbing business, then that's what I'm going to concentrate on for you. So
Well,
the message needs to be very clear.
I have a loaded question. Where are the places people find you? That's what you start out with.
Yeah, the three places that people are going to find anybody is, because I work with the databases. If somebody needs any kind of a product or a service, the three places that they're going to go is into the book, the phone book. They're going to go on the internet, and they're going to look at their phone. So those are the three places. And so I need to make sure that wherever the people are going to look, they're going to find you. And if they can find you, then at least you're in the running for helping them to whatever product or service that you.
Right, and that's my point, is that we all have to boil ourselves down to one particular thing to get somebody interested. And of course, there's a number of different ways. If they say I want to be on the internet, then there's a plethora of different ways. But and Frank, we sat there and listened to poor Hamilton struggle so hard. And all of us, and anybody that listens to this podcast needs to understand. You take all of your stuff and you throw it in a hopper and you boil it down and you open the spigot and what comes out. Let me just tell one quick story. Now, most of us know this. Martial artists. Okay, there are 100 different styles of martial arts. Which is the best? And if you throw them all into a hopper and you boil them down and you open the spigot, only two things come out, which is amazing if you think about that. Of all the options from wushu to taekwondo to ninjutsu to hapkido to you go on down the list, right? Two things come out. The first rule of all of them says if you stay in the same spot that the attack starts at, you're sunk. You got to move. You got to do something. You can't stay in the same spot. Number two rule is you must interrupt their pattern. You must interrupt their plan. When you get that done, you go back to rule one. Don't stand there anymore. Move again. And so all martial arts boils down to those two things, period. I know you guys you're not artists, and I think Giardino's been around him a little bit. But so I think with your business, you can have all these different things, but when you got to boil it down to, just like Mark Paul said, there's three things. People find you by the book, they find you by the internet, and they find you by a phone. And I think now, Frank, how would you boil down what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, it's the way of attracting clients in the new connected world. It's 100% inbound. People call you. You don't chase them. And by the time they call you, they are 85% pre-sold that you're the one they want to do business with.
Yep. There's a company on the web too called Inbound Marketing. And
yes.
You might want to check them out too. But yeah, they're the same flavor. And then Mark Giardino, how do you boil down what you do?
Well, what I can boil down what sportsrefer.com does. What we do is connect the international sporting community in conversation. So we bring people together in the athletic world, sports world, and bring them in conversation where they can interact with each other in different ways of social media so they can help themselves be better.
Okay. And so there you go. There's our best. We're coming up on our 1 hour. Anybody want to make
Peter,
yeah.
What do you
go ahead.
Peter, what do you do?
That's a good question. Which business do I talk about? It's a good question. In my self-defense weapons business, I save lives.
Cool.
What's your family worth? When the bad guy comes a calling, we give them the bad day. That's what I do for that one. For the internet stuff, I'm a marketing digital expert, and I help out certainly in integrating your marketing from brick and mortar all the way onto the web. That's what I do.
Okay.
All right.
Super.
Yeah, thank you, Frank, for that pitch. A shameless plug for my services. Thank you. So, Dick, you want to come to a close here?
No, I think it's been a good hour. We covered a lot of subjects, and hopefully the viewers of this podcast derive a benefit from it.
Okay, and Frank, you want a closing statement?
Yeah, again, I always look forward to this because it gives me a chance to talk, which I enjoy doing, but it gives me a chance to listen and learn. And I appreciate Mark Paul being on today because I can always learn a lot from him. But I think where we're going with this and these next 4 weeks is so critical. I'm glad we're doing it. That's it.
It was Dick's suggestion, and I'm glad he did. Mark Giardino, closing thought?
Well, again, I want to thank you guys for inviting me. I think we're providing a great service for someone and people who do own websites that we can let people know the ins and outs and the mistakes that we've done, and we can apply it to our podcast and help people out.
I agree. And Mark Paul, a closing comment?
Closing comment. The internet is extremely fragmented. You can spend a gazillion dollars on the internet and not get anything back from it relative. So really, when everything boils down to it, we really need to make sure that the return on your investment makes sense of whatever kind of thing that you do in regards to your advertising or getting into the internet and making sure that it's working for you from a cost standpoint as well as from an information standpoint.
Very good. And then my closing statement, if you don't venture out, there's nothing gained whatsoever. It's absolutely certain if you don't try to market yourself out on the web, you'll get zero. You'll have an online brochure that nobody sees. But so with that, hey, guys, we're going to get in. I think we've actually had a lot of great podcasts already that get even richer, and I didn't think that was possible. So this ought to be a lot of fun. For next week, we'll see everybody and enjoy yourselves, and we'll say goodnight, and say goodnight, Dick.
Night, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
It's like John Boy. All right. Hang on, guys. I'm going to stop the broadcast. Don't go away.